Now that we've got quite a bit of code going on, it'd be a good idea to save our work so we have a backup of it and be able to track our changes to the code and restore it to a previous state in case we mess it up somehow. What we're looking for here is some form of version or revision control. There are a number of version control systems that have been developed for various platforms and languages, but a very popular VCS that is widely used in the Rails community is Git. Git is a version control tool that you can install on your machine to keep a repository of your source code that tracks all of your changes and gives you the ability to revert to any previously saved versions of your code. If you'd like to learn more about Git source code management or want to install it on your own machine, you can visit http://git-scm.com to get the latest build of Git for your OS and also find documentation that gives you an introduction to version control and a beginner's guide to using Git. If you're following this video but working on a local development environment, you'll want to download and install Git on your machine first. The Cloud9 Linux environment already has Git installed by default, so we can go ahead and initialize our repository without any additional setup. Just go to your console and say git space init. This will initialize an empty repository in your current working directory. Now you should be able to check the status of your repository by running git status. Git status shows the list of files that have changed since your last commit, which in other words just means the last time you saved your code changes. Since we've only just initialized this repository, or repo for short, you'll notice that Git status reports all the files you have in your directory as being untracked, meaning that they haven't been committed to the repo yet. We'll commit these files into the repo, but before that, we'll want to make sure that we aren't committing non-essential files. If you haven't already done so, you'll want to let Cloud9 show you hidden files in your Navigator sidebar. You do that by clicking on the gear symbol at the top of the Navigator sidebar and enabling Show Hidden Files. You'll then see a .gitignore file, which is what we'll be editing. Opening it up, you'll see a number of files already being ignored by Git at the moment. We'll just add a few more lines right at the bottom to ignore Cloud9 metadata files and folders. Let's add a little comment here to tell other developers who might view our code what we're ignoring here, which is the Cloud9 stuff. Right under that, we'll add the .c9 folder and also any files under that folder by adding a /* line under it. And here we're ignoring files with the names backup, base, local, and remote in caps, which are files generated when merging other people's code into your repo. The stars or asterisks are used as a wildcard to match any character. Now, you can save the changes to the gitignore file and rerun git status. You will notice that it doesn't report the .c9 folder as untracked anymore. Excellent! To add a file to be committed into your repo, you would type git add space the name of the file you want to add. Let's try adding the .gitignore file we just updated so it will be committed to the repo. Running git status now will show us the .gitignore file under the changes to be committed list in green. Now let's commit this with the message updated gitignore. You'll say git commit, which is the command to commit your changes, and add the option -m to specify a commit message so we know what we did in this commit, and then add the message in a string right at the end. Now you can view your last commit by running git log, which lists the ID of your previous commits along with data about when it was committed and by whom, and also the commit message telling us what was done in that commit. Running git status now shows us the list of files that are still untracked. There's quite a bunch of them, and adding them one by one would indeed be quite a chore. Instead of doing that, we can add all the currently untracked files by telling Git to add everything in the current directory by saying git add dot. Now, git status should show all these files in the changes to be committed list, and we can go ahead and commit them. Let's call this commit initial code commit. Running git status again will tell you that there's nothing to commit, meaning there aren't any changes that need saving. Hooray! So, we've got a local repo that we're using to keep track of our source code. Let's push this repo up onto github.com so we can keep it as a secondary backup and also allow other developers to view and work on our code. We'll check out how to do that in the next video.